Uh, Thanks, Tim. It's good to be back on the platform again. I guess the major starting fact about Noxopharm is it's a drug development company currently in its 6th year of operation. Next slide, thanks. We have a technology platform which we developed ourselves and we own outright, and it allows us to focus on two main areas: cancer and septic shock. Now, everyone knows about cancer, obviously, but fewer have ever heard of septic shock. This is despite the fact that they both kill about the same number of people each year. And between them, they account for about 40%. That's 40% of all deaths worldwide from disease. Now, the term septic shock refers to the body going into a potentially fatal shock as a result of an infection or sepsis. So the infection is the sepsis, and the outcome is shock. And the example that you see here is an infection of the lung. Now, the death from septic shock isn't coming directly from the infection. It's the result of the body overreacting to the infection. And that triggers a shock where the blood pressure collapses catastrophically. That leads to failure of the body's major organs. Now, in 2019, there was an estimated 10 million people died worldwide from septic shock, mainly from various viral infections like influenza, but also parasitic infections like malaria. Now, last year, to that 10 million people, we can add another 2 million people who died from septic shock due to the coronavirus. So septic shock is very central to the current pandemic. Next slide, please. So you might well ask, well, what's the connection between cancer and septic shock? Why do we have a platform technology that might be relevant to both? And the answer is that both septic shock and cancer involve abnormalities of the immune system and inflammation. In the case of cancer, the cancer cells actually manipulate the immune system and inflammation to their advantage, and that aids the growth and ability to spread around the body. In the case of septic shock, the problem is that the body's immune system has overreacted to the infection. And it turns out that both of these scenarios share a family of enzymes or biologies in the body that are misbehaving. And we've identified a family of drugs that block the enzymes involved in both of these scenarios. So that's the common link. Next slide, thanks. Now, after 5 years of testing, we're confident that we know how our technology is working, and therefore what its main commercial opportunities are. And this has led us to settle on the business structure you see here, which starting from the left, you see our main business currently is to develop our first drug, Vyonda, as a way of boosting the effectiveness of most common forms of cancer therapy. And I'll be enlarging on this in a minute. The second business is to develop a pipeline of cancer drugs, and this is an entirely new concept in cancer therapy. It involves not just killing the cancer cells, but also stopping the surrounding healthy tissues from helping to drive the aggressive growth of cancers like pancreatic cancer and brain cancer. And this, in fact, is a particularly exciting venture within the company. The third one along involves the use of Vyonda to treat septic shock. And the fourth is to build on the way that Vyonda prevents septic shock by developing a whole new family of drugs that we hope to treat chronic inflammatory diseases such as rheumatoid arthritis, as well as autoimmune diseases such as motor neurone disease. And this fourth opportunity sits in a fully owned subsidiary of the company called Pharmarage. Next slide, thanks. And given our limited time today, I'm just going to focus on the aim of developing Vyonda as a general booster of common cancer treatments. What you see here are the 7 major ways that doctors currently treat cancer. And of these, our aim is to see Vyonda become a standard companion treatment with the 4 on the right that provide the backbone of cancer therapy. Now, each one of these treatments, chemotherapy and radiotherapy, for example, is limited in its effectiveness. You have, with most patients, the cancers either start off not responding to any of these treatments, or they do respond initially, but they eventually stop responding. So regrettably, once you develop metastatic cancer, it's not a question so much if you will die, it's a question of when. Now, all of these four ways are in urgent need of help. And that's what we are developing Vyonda to provide. Next slide, thanks. So we've got 4 clinical programs running. SEP is about making Vyonda, about using Vyonda to make common forms of chemotherapy work better. Ionic is about combining Vyonda with the exciting new generation of drugs known as checkpoint inhibitors. This is the so-called immuno-oncology sector. This particular program is being co-sponsored by Bristol Myers Squibb, the large US pharmaceutical company. The third one, DART, is about combining Vyonda with standard radiotherapy. And the fourth one, Lupin, is about combining Vyonda with targeted drug therapy, which involves using a radioactive drug which is injected intravenously. And that trial is being co-sponsored by Novartis, which is the 4th largest pharmaceutical company in the world. So this is what we call our 4 pillars oncology strategy. So we're covering all 4 major forms of current cancer therapy. And you can see at the bottom the commercial value of each of these treatment sectors. So if Vyonda is successful in boosting the value of any one of these sectors, then it potentially puts the value of Vyonda into the billions of dollars. And of course, if we can do 2, 3, or even 4 of all these things, then the potential value has just become telephone book numbers. Next slide, thanks. Now, I can't stress too much just how novel and highly ambitious is this aim for Vyonda. To our knowledge, nobody before has aimed this high. That is, having one drug work across most forms of cancer therapy. And the reason is that nobody before has had the means of addressing what we and a lot of other people regard as the major reason why current cancer therapies struggle to work. And that is that most human cancers or tumours are what are known as being cold. And that simply means that the cancer cells have kicked the immune cells out of the tumour, and that just allows the cancer cells to thrive in the absence of any immune function. Immune function is what kills cancer cells. Get rid of the immune function, the cancer cells are free to grow. So under that sort of scenario, regardless of what damage your treatment is inflicting on the cancer cells, without the immune cells present to take advantage of that, the treatment is just that much less effective. And Vyonda corrects this problem by driving the immune cells back inside the tumour. And this is called converting tumours from cold to hot. And it is a major search currently within the global pharmaceutical industry. We believe we've achieved it, and that's why we believe Vyonda has the capacity to succeed where others have failed. Next slide, thanks. So we've performed clinical trials with 3 of these pillars. That's with chemotherapy, with radiotherapy, and then with targeted radioactive drugs. And in each case, we've produced what the company believes is early confirmation that Vyonda has provided a boost to the other treatment. There clearly isn't time here to run through the detailed data from all these trials, but we have reported those. They're in the public domain, and we're comfortable that we can say that we've delivered proof of principle, early proof of principle. So what we're now doing is taking to the next level by initiating 3 large studies over the next several months. So by the end of this year, we will have 3 quite large studies underway. Next slide, thanks. So in summary, I'd ask you to bear in mind that all our patients have late-stage cancers. These are cancers that have stopped responding to standard treatments, and the patients essentially have stopped being offered any anti-cancer therapy. And in almost all cases, survival is just a matter of months. So in that end stage setting, we've seen clear proof of concept in each of our 3 clinical studies done to date that we're achieving what we set out to achieve, and that is Vyondra is making the other cancer therapy work that much better. And importantly, we've achieved that in a very well tolerated way, and Vyondra has not presented any safety concerns. So that's a major step forward in planting a flag in the ground and saying we're on our way. Now, we've got a busy clinical program. As I mentioned, we've got 3 trials about to start. Some of these are multinational studies involving the United States, Australia, and Europe. And that means that we're confident of a number of important catalysts coming over the next 18 months. And these trials that we're running are all open studies, open label studies, which means that we're able to report on them, present interim data as we're going along. So we're not about to enter a cone of silence for the next 2 years. And the success of Vyondra in any one of these programs carries the potential for major commercial success. And as I said earlier, if we can achieve success in more than one, then we believe Vyondra will become one of the most cleanly sought after assets in the pharmaceutical industry. Next slide. We're well funded, and we've got the cash to carry out our programs. And again, the news flow is looking particularly strong over the next 12 to 18 months. Next slide. So I'll end there, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Graham. You're talking a big picture here with Vyondra having kind of multi-purposes, if you like. Can you talk a little bit more about how you partner with some of these pharmaceutical companies, these global pharmaceutical companies, in relation to getting some data back?
Sure. Well, about 20 or 30 years ago, almost all drug development came out of the big pharmaceutical companies. They all ran huge drug development programs. That's swung around now, where the vast majority of drug development comes out of companies like Noxopharm. So the big boys are relying on the smaller companies like us to be smarter. We're a little bit more nimble. We're less risk averse than the big boys. We can afford to take risks, and we're more creative. So they're relying on companies like us. And in the case of one of the programs we're running, I'll just give that as an example, our Ionic study, and this is using a Bristol-Myers drug called Opdivo. Now, last year, Opdivo did about $8 billion worth of business, and it accounted for 30% of that company's revenue. Now, they're losing ground. Bristol-Myers is losing ground with their drug to another company, Merck, which has a similar drug, and so they're looking to increase the ability of their drug to work in patients. And unfortunately, most patients don't respond to either the BMS drug or the Merck drug. So all we would have to do is to find a way of increasing the response rate to their drug, their $8 billion a year drug, and I think they would be very happy. So BMS is working with about 10 companies worldwide that we're aware of, all looking to help make Opdivo work better. So we're in that race at the moment to make Opdivo work better. That's just one of the programs we're working with. So that, to answer your question, that's how why we're working with companies like BMS and Novartis, and we look forward to that relationship blossoming over the years ahead.
And when you do one of these trials, so you have Opdivo and Vyondra together, have you got any data to suggest that Vyondra actually improves the patient without in combination? I'm trying to work out how how you determine the combination and the success of Beyonder relative to Opdivo?
Well, in the case of Opdivo, where our trial that we're about to start is taking patients whose tumours have not responded to Opdivo. So they've been given Opdivo. They will have maybe lung cancer or melanoma or bladder cancer, and they've been treated with Opdivo, and then the tumour has either just failed to respond at all, or it's shown a little bit of response and then stopped responding. So we know that the patient is not going to be responding to Opdivo. So if we then treat that patient with a combination of Beyonder and Opdivo, and that patient responds, then we can say with some degree of confidence that it's the combination that's done the job. That's where we're up to at the moment. Now, from there, in order to get our drug approved and put on the market, we would have to do a much bigger, a large control study where we would have to, we would go Opdivo alone versus Opdivo in combination with Beyonder.
And finally, there's quite a few questions here. Can you talk us about the IP position on Beyonder?
Sure. Well, we've got a series of families. We've got eight families of patents that are currently being examined. One of those patents has been granted in one country, and we've just learned that another patent, as all the claims have been accepted in Europe. So it's an ongoing process. We're at the start of it. We're confident that we will achieve solid IP coverage around Beyonder that will. It's the sort of coverage that you would a big company like BMS or Novartis would require.